L. Ron Howard wanted to start a cult.
L. Ron Hubbard.
That's 100% L. Ron Howard.
It's 100% L. Ron Hubbard.
It's 100% L. Ron Howard. 100%. What you gotta do is break him down. You gotta L. Ron Howard him.
That's not a thing. So much about Scientology except the guy's name. That's the easiest part of it. What would they invent Scientology like after he directed Backdraft in Apollo 13?
No, that was Ron Howard. I'm talking about L. Ron Howard.
Oh my God.
Guys, can we please stop?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. That is my new intro. I just thought I'd try out. I'm kind of a big fan of any sort of mention of Scientology on any sort of episodic or TV shows anywhere. So that's one that I've thought was hilarious for a long time. But don't worry, you're not going to be L. Ron Howarded today. So, hey, we're here to talk to my mom, Biddy, again. This will be our second round. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. So I want to just bring her right on. Here we go. Hey.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm going to assume that it's 10 o'clock in Pacific Coast time. You've probably already fed the chickens, cleaned the entire house, and done everything that would normally take most people all Saturday to do.
Well, only because I'm up so early at 5 o'clock. But yes, I did all that. Check the gear, turn it up, open the doors and all that stuff.
Yeah, I figured as much. I know. For a brief period, I lived with you in Virginia after I had left, so I'm acutely aware of the very, very strict Saturday schedule. Sorry, I had to mention that.
Yeah, I'm trying to back it off,
Yeah, a little bit, chill out. Well, okay, so I wanted to just pick up where we left off last time, and I think we had gotten to off the ship, married Foster. Pregnant with us, and we're now in Florida at the FSO, the Flag Service Organization, in Clearwater, and you're pregnant. So
yeah, management was there too at that time. So it wasn't just
okay.
Yeah, so it was the FSO was part of it. It was a small part of it at that time.
Right.
And then the Flag Bureau was big, and there was all sorts of different. There was the IMO, the Start of Gold.
Okay.
And all that type of stuff. So it was all sort of starting there, you know what I mean? But different shapes. So it wasn't just the FSO. Now,
Okay. So it was management as well. That's why it was called a flag.
Yeah.
Like a flagship. Okay. I mean, I was in your stomach, so I was unaware of those circumstances.
Exactly. I was just telling you. It's always interesting to look at things at the time that it happened, rather than with glasses on now, you can look back and you see it a totally different way. But if you look at it at the time and the things that were being juggled at that time anyway.
Well, and you made me think of a question I want to throw at you real quickly. Were there any other pregnant mothers of the kids that I grew up with and know now? Was anyone else pregnant at the same time? A Nettie Alcock or even Diana Hubbard? Was anyone else pregnant at the time? Or
I think I was one of the first, and they came right after, within months or days or something like, months probably. I don't know, how much older are you, or are you older than Sean?
I think I am older than Sean.
Yeah,
I'm definitely older than Roanne. I'm older than Sean.
Roanne, for sure. She came after you guys,
I think maybe Lizzie Eastman, John and Peggy Eastman's daughter, was maybe just before us.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. We may have been one of the first of the baby boom after the ship.
Right, exactly.
Is my guess, because I'm trying to think if I list it off right now. So we have, Darius is older, but I think Janice mentioned Darius Wilher was born in DC. And that's where Sue,
I don't know how that went down, but yeah, you're right. And maybe they were called over to the Clearwater at that time. I don't know. I don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, later on, because we were in the nursery together, so there must have been something along those lines. But please, I did not mean to distract you.
No, that's all. And so at that time when I was pregnant, I thought I was going to have one baby. Remember, so I always, up until Justin was delivered, I thought I was going to have one baby. You know what I mean? So that one baby's name was going to be Sterling Justin Tompkins.
Okay.
And then I changed it, of course, because I got told, after the first one, which was Justin at that time was born, that there was two. And, you know, unknown to me at all. So I went, oh, and the first thing out of my mouth was, oh, I'll name one Justin and the other Sterling. And that was how the names came about. You know what I mean? But Sterling, yes, was for my father, and whose name was Sterling. And he was Sterling William the Third. So I would have to have been a guy for it to be Sterling William the Fourth. So
Okay.
you know, so it would, you know, that's how that works. But anyway, but you have the exact same name as him. Anyway, Justin, that name I just loved, and they sort of go together, Sterling and Justin. If you look up the definitions of them, they sort of, one is for justice and all that, and Sterling is pure and, you know, silver, you know, and that type of thing. So they sort of go together.
And both not common names at the time either. I mean,
no,
Justin
not at all.
didn't-
Justin was not a now it is, you know what I mean? I remember people used to call him everything, Jay, Dustin, or everything.
Jaybird.
Yeah, well,
Jaybird. Yeah. Sasquatch. The Yeti. Bigfoot. I mean, the names go on forever.
Exactly. Well, when you guys were in the hospital, you were named with just J and S.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that was what was on your card, J and S. So to make sure you didn't get mixed up or something like that. And so you were called that for a long time, J and for Justin, and then S for Sterling, you know.
Right. And there still is a bit of a conspiracy theory running in the family that possibly Justin really isn't related to anyone and someone mixed up a bassinet. and I'll admit that I may be the person spreading that rumor mostly, but the mystical beast that is Justin hopefully will someday make an appearance, but he does watch everything. He definitely watches everything because I get his instant review, which is pretty nice. But anyways, please and I have obviously heard, we have talked about the birth story. So this is something that's not new to me, everybody. I do know this section of it. What I'll be fascinated to hear about is after, and how things went with you and Foster, and meeting Ronnie, and how Foster ended up with Barbara. These are things that I never could talk to Foster about. Yeah. And for a couple reasons, because my dad, a lot like me, is a little bit of a jokester. So sometimes if you ask a serious, straightforward question, he can't help but make a joke about it and not just answer it honestly. And I think I've told you what he said when I asked him once why he divorced you. And I would say it here, but it's so deep Scientologically as a joke that you wouldn't understand it if I explained it, because it was just only if you've been there your whole life would you understand how that was a factor. But please go ahead.
Anyway, so when you guys were born, it was J and S, and I brought you home, and I only had things set up for one baby, and then of course the whole base at that time got together and put things in, you know, so I had stuff for two babies at that point. But Mike Rinder's mother and father came and helped me quite a bit. I remember that because I didn't know what to, you know, I was, it was two babies and I had them each in each arm. And other than that, didn't know, you know, I didn't have my mother there or anything like that. So, but we, so that was, they helped a lot on that type of thing. And your godparents were, you know, Mike and Kathy Rinder, and whatever godparents meant in the church, I don't know.
Well, and I didn't know that. I didn't even think to ask that question. Your mom was not around when we were born. I mean, or your father, because you were all the way over in Florida. But I didn't even, it's funny because, you know, I didn't even think to ask that question.
But I took you guys they were in Colorado,
right,
in Denver, Colorado. So, and I took you both, you know, to California to meet up with Foster's parents, and then also into Denver, Colorado to meet with mine. And I remember, because it was always a joke, because my dad would be, you know, always holding you. And I'd say, Dad, that's Sterling you're holding. Oh, is it? I can't tell. And he would always say that. And he would, you know, that was always his, you know, because it was his namesake and stuff like that. I often wondered too, and I don't know, is one time he took you guys out sort of for the day. And I was like, where's Dad? Where's my kids? You know what I mean? All this, you know, this type of thing. And I'm not worried or concerned or anything like that, but I think he may have gotten you baptized. He said he took you up to the Continental Divide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, you know, And so, but I think he may have done that just to be, because he was sort of the type of person that wanted to make sure all bases were covered.
Well, I'm thinking he was trying to see if the alien mothership wanted to take us back, because we
No.
did not look like normal. We did not look like normal humans.
Yeah, exactly. You were very thin.
Yeah.
But no, he thought you guys were perfect, so and that's what I thought he had done, but I don't know, who knows?
Yeah, and I obviously have no memory of him because I don't think I knew him. I mean, he met me when I was a baby, and maybe I saw him when I was a couple years old, but then I never actually saw him again. I knew your mom, obviously. I'd met her back in the 80s again when she was working at Bridge Publications, which Bridge Publications is the organization which handled L. Ron Hubbard's books and the publishing and distribution of his fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah, she was an editor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There, she edited. And I don't think I didn't bring it here. And obviously I don't think I have it there. I might have it in one of my shelves behind me, but she edited all of LRH's books.
Wow.
Yeah. She did all the editing of them in a new unit of time when they were re-released or something like that. Anyway, and then she wrote a book, introduction to a book, because she was trained in the English literature in Loyola University in Illinois. And so she was, she did a lot of that. And so she wrote the intro for some book that was a reference book for colleges on LRH's materials. That's all I know about it. Anyway, so yeah, that's what she did at Bridge.
Okay.
But
all
it's
right.
funny you don't remember or don't know my dad, because he was at that time, either that time or when you guys were 1 year old, but I think it was at that time, he played Foster in tennis. He was very good at tennis.
Wait, your dad, not Foster, clearly.
Well, no, because he beat Foster.
Okay. Because I played tennis with Foster. Yeah. The reigning champ in Foster's family for tennis would have to be Penny.
Okay, that makes sense.
Who showed me how to play tennis.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm her protege. But yeah, no, Foster was never athletic, which is surprising because Justin and I are athletic. And we're still trying to figure it out where we got it from, because I know it's not from you. And it's definitely not from any of your sisters.
I don't know why you say that, because my father was very athletic and I was on every baseball team there was.
Well, maybe because we didn't spend enough time together that I never saw you play sports. So I'm assuming that.
Volleyball.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not get into family functions with volleyball. I might say something I'm going to regret later.
Yeah.
And to be clear, though, so I don't want to. I do all your sisters except for Jennifer, who I actually was very fond of when I was a young kid, because she used to take me to Raging Waters and baseball games. But Sarah, TC, God, I almost forgot her name. TC, I love them. They're complete sweethearts. And I've got nothing bad to say about them, but I do have this penchant for teasing TC for some reason, and I apologize, but I actually do love her. If I tease you, I love you. Just so we're clear. If I don't talk to you, then that should be a clear sign. But anyways, we could easily digress a million ways. So please continue wherever you want.
I forget where I was, but anyway, I was saying that.
Continental Divide.
Sorry?
Continental Divide.
Okay, yeah. So he took you there, and I don't know if he got you baptized, just so all bases were covered type thing. Plus, that was the time he played Foster in tennis and beat him. I remember that. He and Foster and my dad weren't the tight like that. My mom and Foster were.
Really?
Yeah, more so, I would say. You know what I mean? And Ronnie never met my dad.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So he never. So that's how that sort of went down.
How old were Justin and I when your dad passed away?
2.
Oh, okay. That explains that. All right.
Yeah.
So we're
and
then
really 3 when you guys, I got remarried.
All right.
And anyway, that so you came out. You guys also, we also came out again when you guys were 1 year old. So it was at that time when we went at the first time when you guys were just like a month old or something like that, that we went to California. That's where I met first Penny and all of Foster's sisters and siblings and his mom and dad, Bob and Cher, or whatever they are.
I think it was Bob and Cher.
Okay.
I don't know where Cher came in.
No, that's probably correct. I probably added just names.
Yeah, and I think Cher being and this is we go off on this. I'll tell that story later about Cher and Justin, which is a pretty funny story. But there is an interesting story about that visit. Was there something with Child Protective Services?
Yeah. So Cher mainly called Protective Services because we would not we would not put you guys on Similac, the formula Similac. And she was concerned about Justin's weight at that time, as was I. Really? Yeah. Because you were gaining faster at that point. And and at that critical age when you're like, you were, 4 pounds, 13 ounces, very small. That was Justin. You were 5 pounds, 2 ounces.
So I was actually heavier. So I was actually heavier than Justin at one point in my life.
At birth. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
that's why it was so unusual, because usually the bigger baby is born first.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's all kind of weird. You know what I mean?
No, that I did not know because at some point I've never been heavier than Justin for the.
Yeah. Well, you were then, and you stayed. You continued to gain, and he didn't. And that's when we switched him. My sister Jennifer also lived out in California at that time, and she suggested, hey, try raw milk or goat's milk or something like that. And maybe that would make it easier for Justin. And it was like, then he started gaining and he didn't stop.
Interesting.
By 3 months, he was like huge.
Right. Okay. So they had called because Justin was so gaunt at the time, they had called, they were concerned about the health. And I'm pretty sure Cher was probably the person that instigated that whole thing. I would have to ask that half the family about that, but I want to make sure we're clear too here. Cher to me was a fantastic grandma. Yeah. She was rough around the edges sometimes. She was very particular, and if you weren't in her inner circle, I would say she sometimes could make life a little more difficult for you. But to the children, to the grandchildren of her kids, she was very, very nice and very polite. And I learned a lot from her. She did a lot of things that were interesting. And Foster's father was kind of like he was the lighter side of that whole equation. He was so easygoing and so laid back and chill.
Also into computers, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. He worked for the original cash register company, I believe it was. Yeah. I know I'm going to get a call from Penny after this give me all the details I got wrong, which I hope I do, because, hey,
I would consider that computers. He was in that. He was in that mindset that Foster was. You know what I mean? So.
Right. Did you get along with everyone in the family when you first met them, or how did that go?
Not Cher.
Okay.
And not Prudence, I don't think.
Prue.
Yeah.
Prue, okay. Prue. Well, she was the youngest. Yeah. She was probably close to a little bit younger than you, or close to your age, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. And Penny was great, and then I think that was it. And Bob was kind of neutral, like wallpaper. He didn't stick out one way or the other for me, but I just knew them like days. So it's like, I shouldn't say that, shouldn't even have an opinion. But Cher, we would.
and just so everyone knows, so Foster, my biological father, he has 3 sisters. That would be Penny, Prue, and Pam. And
Pam, I don't think I met. I may have.
Yeah, but. Pam, I think she lived up north. So she wasn't like, even when I was growing up, I didn't see Pam a whole lot. I would see her every once in a while, but I grew up with Prue and Penny. So whenever we had family visits or get-togethers or a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, they were all around. And actually, Penny's 2 daughters are the 2 that I'm very, very close to. Mm-hmm. And Prue's kids, John and Blake, Blake's actually got the same birthday as me. He was born on the same exact day as me, maybe 2 or 3 years younger than me. So these were the cousins that I grew up with and I was closest to. And Justin really didn't know them. Justin knew the cousins on your side and Ronnie's side. So we kind of actually grew up in different families to some degree. And later on, Justin did meet Foster's family, but never really considered them his family, just because we weren't raised together. It was a kind of an interesting scenario, but it was what it was. So I'm blessed to have Penny and Prue. I love them.
They are awesome. I love them all too. They are great. Yeah. They're a great family to be part of. They really are.
They are so supportive, and it does really show you what it's like to have a good family. And I feel for a lot of, there's a lot of ex-Scientology and ex-Sea Org members that come out and don't have family to go to, and that is one of the saddest things. I have a very close friend named Shane Clark who doesn't have.
That's what I thought of instantly.
Who doesn't have anybody, and he makes a go of it. He's a fantastic guy, and
he has a great son named Connor, and he is awesome. Yeah, he is great.
And his older brother, was one of my closest friends, and so when I left, Shane and I got back into contact, and we've been friends ever since. He's even come to a family reunion with Foster's family, and they all thought he was amazing and loved him and invited him back anytime he ever wants to come to a family reunion. And they actually ask about him every once in a while, like, hey, are you bringing Shane over? Because Shane and I are kind of like brothers in some sort of way. We kind of dig each other. We get along really well. We've traveled to Mexico together. He's just, he was my ride or die buddy. So, but it is sad because he does have a family that's completely disconnected from him. His sister, his father, his mom is still, I believe, at Golden Era Productions. But he's a stand-up person, and that's one of the things that kind of makes me sad about the whole situation.
And I think a lot of people have reached out. I know I have, and others, to try to be a surrogate. Hey, we're here. And he's got now a family of his own, so there's a bright side to it. He's married,
there really is.
He's got Connor, who's, I gotta say, the most beautiful boy in the world.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah. You're not going to hear anyone say any different than that anywhere. All right. So, so we shot off on a little thing there. Let's get, if you don't mind, let's get back to, okay. So when you were in Florida and we were there, we were at the nursery. What point did you and Foster get divorced, or how did that whole story progress? Funny enough, because it was never spoken about by Foster. I didn't think to ask about it. Never mentioned. There was never anything. I just knew at one point Justin was over here, I was here, and then at one point I flew to LA and he flew to New Hampshire, Philadelphia, New Hampshire. So I don't,
Yeah, and there's a big time period in there. So so it's probably, you guys were probably, so when we first separated, you stayed in the CMO nursery. So it's you guys sort of grew up together until I left the SO altogether with Ronnie. You know what I mean? So, but for a long time, you two were together. Even though I think I got married. I shouldn't say I think, but I got married into Ronnie, and we separated. And Foster got married to Barbara about the same time. So Barbara Tompkins. So it all sort of occurred at the same time. As a matter of fact, I think Ronnie was the witness on the divorce and then the marriage for Barbara and Foster. So it was all mixed up,
Okay.
It was about the same time, about 3 years old. You stayed in the CMO nursery for about a year later, and then I forget. Now I'm mixing up interviews. Sorry, but I think that at some point later, after the mission holder conference, that's a time period that I remember. And then after that, Ronnie and I were assigned to the RPF for something. I forget why exactly. Something to do with, we had investigated and found out at that time that there was an attempted takeover of CMO Int, which by that time had moved off of the base in Clearwater and was in Hemet,
Okay.
not Hemet, sorry, La Quinta. It was in so it was in a separate place, but we said, hey, there might be a takeover. And then of course we got hit at the same time. So we were a little too late on that. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
this is then the takeover had already occurred and all this other stuff. And
that's a whole nother story that I'll have to ask you about sometime.
Story,
yeah. Like that fascinates me now, being an adult, but that is definitely a whole nother thing. You keep saying that I stayed in the CMO nursery, but was that because Foster and Barbara were not in the CMO?
No.
But because Justin was still in the CMO nursery and you were still in CMO, I got to stay in the CMO nursery.
Exactly.
I'm assuming.
Exactly. Okay. So it was like back at that time, the divorces were similar to how they are now. You know what I mean? So you have sole custody or not sole custody, and there was no, obviously no, child abuse or something on one side or not in the other, and blah, blah. So it was mutual support. So it was like we both had full custody. You know what I mean? Or
right.
Legal custody. So we would talk about everything usually at that time. And at that time, it was decided you two stay together, and you stayed in the CMO nursery together until you were about 5 or 6. And I forget what time you went to LA, but I think it was about that time. Anyway, yeah. Ronnie and I got assigned to the RPF, and at that time we were not willing to go. We weren't going for what we were assigned for and all that other stuff. So that's a whole separate subject. We wouldn't go. So we left. But when we left, we took Justin.
Right.
Right. Because I couldn't take you even, and I did ask, but of course it got said no.
So
and one thing I do want to say,
and
I for all the listeners or viewers out there, I was not number one mother at all. I was a bad mother. I think I did not put the time in. I did not, and all that. I think at the time I looked for the organization and went, okay, let me put the ranch here. Let me put the QI nursery here. Let me help on this type of stuff that I knew how to do. But as a mother, no, did not. And one thing I want to say on that is when I got married to Ronnie, I remember this story. It was stood out to me so much. And that is that his mother, Loretta, who's a great woman, came up to me and gave me a hug and a kiss. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you hugging me and kissing me? You know what I mean? I wasn't used to that type of affection, at all.
Yeah.
It didn't occur in my family and wasn't in the generation I came from and all this other stuff. But I do remember that. And she was like very loving and a great woman. And anyway, so I did want to say that early on so that when I give these stories, I do know from where I'm coming from or from what I speak of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just so you know, for me as one of your children, I appreciate you saying that. I don't hold any grudge towards you, and everyone has a different view of how that affected them and how that went down. I don't, at least knowingly, have any lingering anxiety or anger towards you for that, but I also was not raised by you. So I was at a young enough age where Barbara became my mother. And I was very, very fortunate in that, and Barbara, she was a wonderful mom as much as she could be there as well.
Right.
She did the little things when I was younger, when we did have family time. She came out and, hit fly balls to me out on the street in LA. She played catch with me. She would take me to my little league games and do all these different things. And so she filled in very, very well, in my opinion. And I appreciate that. So there was a point where I got to be honest with you, and I hope it doesn't sadden you for me to say this, but I didn't even remember you for a little bit because I was so young.
Right, exactly.
But what I did remember was Justin. Because I had that attachment to him. And there was a point after we'd gone our separate ways. I was now in LA. You were, I believe you landed in New Hampshire.
Right.
And I just remember longing to see my brother. I remember even seeing other kids that looked like my twin brother.
Yeah.
That I was like, I wonder if I'm going to see him again. And that kind of bounces us into, and I've always really wondered, because somewhere along at the, and I wish I pulled up the pictures because we have some wonderful pictures at the roller skating rink.
Yeah.
And me with my 80s tail and my bonsai shirt wearing all black. So because Justin was basically the Berenstein Bears kid. He was perfectly dressed and, you know, tucked in shirt to his shorts. He's going to kill me for that one, you know, long socks. And I was this LA kid that wore all baggy clothes, Converse. And we were so different, but we ended up getting back together in New Hampshire, and you guys made us wear the same exact clothes for a couple of days and took a bunch of pictures with them. You made us wear red shirts, I believe, or red polos. But I would love it if you could explain how that went down. How I believe you had to fight to get me to come to New Hampshire, and you were paying for everything. So Foster didn't have to pay for anything, if I believe.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah. So at that time it was, so like I said, full, you know, so he had full custody of you, I had full custody, and we had joint custody, you know what I mean? So it was like a normal divorce type thing. So I had to get his permission, and obviously you were a minor, to come out. And so that we ran into problems on. He would not let you out for any reason at all to come to New Hampshire. And I would pay for everything, you know what I mean? And I wanted you out the first year, the second year, you know, and I selfishly wanted you out because, not because of Justin and Sterling, but because of, I wanted to see my son. And at that time, Foster, as he is now, was very, well, no, if you're not in the church, then you're not my friend, and you won't, you know, you'll never see your son again, and da-da-da. And I fought. At that time, as I mentioned, I think in this interview or some other interview, but David and Marty used to come to New Hampshire a lot and visit us. And it was at that time that I think that it was allowed, you know, it was like, okay, she's okay now. She, you know, you can come. And so then I got you out, and you flew out, and we spent all that time together in New Hampshire. And yes, Justin got everything at that time. He had his own room, his own playroom, his own TV room, his own, he had a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And I remember that because where I was living was drastically different.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that, because that I'll get into that as we get later on, because it would be fun to compare the growing up experiences, because we even have to talk about when you guys came back to LA when I was with Justin. But let's stay our course on this one. Let's continue. So how do you convince Foster to finally, like, what was it that
I don't think I did. I think it came down the lines that, hey, they're in good standing, don't mess with them. And that the minute that happened, it was like, okay, you can go now. Interesting. So that's what I think happened.
Okay. Of course I'm a kid, so I don't know anything about that.
And I didn't question, like, you don't question a gift horse in the mouth. I went, okay, get him here, you know? And I don't know, was Jenna born even when you arrived?
Yeah. So Jenna, and I'll never forget this. I'm always going to call it the spaghetti incident.
Oh yeah. I have a picture of that.
You have pictures of it. Yeah. Where she must have been maybe a year or something.
Yeah.
And she was eating spaghetti in the living room, and I'll never forget her just getting it everywhere, just completely sprayed. And then there is a picture of it, which is kind of clever.
Yeah,
you probably shouldn't show it. It's a little embarrassing, but yeah, I remember that. But I really remember being back with Justin and being excited about that. And I think you went out and got us slingshots, or they were called wrist rockets at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And we pissed off Ronnie because him and I were shooting rocks over the house.
Yeah. The house he built. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll never forget the, you guys would play We Are the World on your vinyl player in the living room. And at that time, we all were watching that movie Breakin', which was about breakdancing in the 80s. And I remember that from that instance. And I want to say I was there for maybe a week and a half.
Or longer than that even.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot. It's funny. I have pretty good memory of all the things we did. I even, again, remember, you know, Ronnie and you taking me out to buy a whole new set of clothes that matched Justin's. And then I think you even bought me the bonsai cool bonsai black sweater, which we'll have to show that picture sometime. I have a lot of fond memories of it. But then I remember leaving and then missing Justin again.
Right, exactly. And I think that you had come then about 2 years after we had left. So, because Janet, by her age in that picture, she was under a year and of course 9 months. And I arrived to New Hampshire and had her very quickly. So I was pregnant when I was in Pennsylvania, and then came, and then, so probably 2 years then into it. You then were allowed to finally come. And then we came back probably about a year after that or 2 years after that,
Do you remember what year? I know it's hard for the years for you.
I know. Only because if I wrote them down, I would probably have it all straightened out. I remember it by events. You know what I mean? So there was the one thin dime thing happening at that time.
Right, because I remember with Justin, I was at the Crusades. I have photos of him.
So we got you were there, yay! Barbara was there, and we and my sister was there, and all that. So we flew out, and we had everyone together. So that was another time that we got together at that point. But we came after that, shortly after that, and arrived. But we went the long route. We drove through Colorado and all that other stuff,
Now, did you come back when you came back for the Crusades? Was that you guys coming back into the Sea organization
No,
or was it just for the Crusades?
It was for the Crusades.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and Crusades were 85. So, okay.
Yeah. So we came for the Crusade, and then shortly after, I remember. So when we were there, the death of L. Ron Hubbard occurred while we were there.
Oh, really? So did you go to the event that the announcement was made?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And I was there too. I was actually at the Palladium the night they announced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I apologize. I can get the time track down better, and
no worries. No worries.
Give it to you. But so anyway, I saw you a couple of times, that thing, and then you came and stayed with us. I remember in Portland and all that, and anyway, it was you were gotten together, but that was the main thing at that time that prevented it from happening, and that's how the split up occurred. I don't know why Foster went to LA.
That was Incom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, that was Incom. And actually, little known fact, and Chuck Beatty mentions this sometimes in the chats or the comments. And by the way, Chuck, thank you so much, because Chuck Beatty actually has a pretty long history with Foster and has always gone on to give background information and actually said some very nice things about my dad, which I appreciate. But Foster, when Incom, which is the computerized organization for the church, was created, Barbara was actually the commanding officer, the in charge of Incom, while Foster was running the project.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And it was from there that they both got removed together at one point. They were sent. Now, I think I mentioned that story to you last week, or maybe I talked to Aaron about it, but that's where I remember waking up one morning with two different people in my bed, in my parents' bed. Like, what? I mean, I laugh about it now. But I was also kind of like, well, I got to go to school. So, let me just get this out of the way and just, sneak out of the room. But that's insane. So you came back. Okay, good. So now we're Crusades. I'm going to guess it must have been between 86 and 87 when Justin and you guys all came back on a permanent basis, because I remember you guys living in the Fountain building, which is right across the street from AOLA, the Advanced Organization in LA, and the Big Blue on Hollywood, Sunset, and Fountain. Right. And I distinctly remember that.
Right. So while we were still in New Hampshire, though, and we were coming back, Foster was calling Ronnie, because Ronnie and him were working on Incom at that time. And they wanted Ronnie because of his experience in computers at a software company. And I was in communication with Mark Yeager at that point to go onto the ship, to set up the ship project, to oversee the whole thing,
Okay.
And
and I specifically remember visiting your guys' room. And now I got to ask you this now that I'm aware of the spatial restrictions that occurred. Your house in New Hampshire was stunning. And I remember going there and being like, I've never even seen a house like this
Yeah.
before. How do you go from your house in New Hampshire to the 1-bedroom apartment in a 1920s building in Los Angeles? I mean, was there any, that had to be uncomfortable. Did you have any?
Well, it's funny because not really for me, you know
Okay.
what I mean? And it might've been for others, but it wasn't for me. And the reason why is when I came into the Sea Org, I came from sleeping in the same bed with my 2 other sisters. I mean, we had 9 kids in our family,
Right.
and not rich and all that type of stuff. And so, you know, I went from that to living on the Apollo in a bunk that looked like anyway, they were very close together. And then to a 1-room, and then out to this place in this Palladium that we built in New Hampshire. That was, I think it was 5,000 square foot, just the house. And then there was a 3-car garage, and then a bedroom apartment on top of that for Ronnie's mother.
Really?
Oh yeah, she had full 1-bedroom apartment on top of that. For that photo that you see a lot that has Dave and all the family and all of us together, that's in the New Hampshire house.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think Justin's wearing a purple shirt. Jenna's tiny at this point.
Yeah. She's
maybe
she's like 2.5, 3.
2.5. Yeah. Okay. I did not know that. I did not know he'd been out there. I mean, of course, realize I had no clue who Dave Miscavige was at that point either. I didn't know Dave Miscavige existed until I think 1988, 89.
Right.
Was the first time. And I don't think he knew I existed.
Right. And Loretta, you can tell by the photo, Loretta and Ron were still together, barely.
Right.
And
for what it's worth, yeah.
Yeah. And they, you know, and so that was the nucleus of the family. Anyway, we were there. And so, and we, you know, it became the house then became something that Ronnie's sister, Lori, the younger sister, younger than Dave and Denise and Ronnie, and she had a lot of kids, was there and lived there. That's who we sold it to, essentially.
Okay. Is that house still standing today? Do you know?
I don't know. I guess it is.
Yeah.
It was built well by Ted Nugent. He built it. Ted Winiger, sorry.
Yeah. Actually, someone had posted a picture of you and Jenna at a construction site, and I think they mislabeled it as you with Jenna at a Sierra construction site, but that was actually that house, I believe.
Oh yeah. At that age, Jenna was born in that house.
Because I've seen photos of Ronnie framing the house. I think you guys went, you know, half Amish on that thing and built it, some parts of it yourself.
Yeah, Ronnie built a lot of it himself, and then the guy who built it, Ted Winiger, and his wife or whatever, Debbie, they lived with us, and they were both Scientologists, etc. at that time, and it was a great house. He built a wonderful house, and I remember, terrible story, but I remember it was a 2x6 construction too, so we had a very thick insulation, and it was a big house, and it was very contemporary. It had cedar siding all around it, you know what I mean, and all that. Anyway, one time he shot himself in the leg with a nail gun. Missed anything bad, but I remember the only way to phone call at that time was to climb up a pole and call me, and he did, and he called me and said, I need you to come and take me to the doctors, and it was just so calm, and I immediately got there and got him and brought him to the doctors. But yeah, it was at that house. That's where.
Yeah, and we would actually have to clarify.
Terrible haircut I had too.
Yeah. Well, this house was in the middle of nowhere. This was not built in the burbs right next to some other houses. If I remember correctly, I mean, I could walk for at least half a mile before I would see a regular road. It was all dirt roads.
Right.
Yeah, and Justin and I went out, hunting. I don't know what we thought we were hunting with our little wrist rockets at the time, but I remember going out hunting with him and having just a blast with those things until we got bored and started shooting them over the house.
Yeah, right.
Which is the first time I think I'd ever really been disciplined by someone, because Foster wasn't super big on the discipline until later when I started opening my big mouth. But okay, so you didn't have such a hard time going back into a smaller
No, so
quarters.
I diverted off on that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's okay.
So I
That's
went
what
to
can
very
happen.
small to this place that was like, I cooked in it and I liked renovating it more and building it than I did living in it. That was, if that makes sense. I liked that process, doing that.
Right.
Hey, I want this. I want the kitchen to be like this. I want, this room to be like this. And Justin's room is to have this. And, oh, we have an extra big closet. Well, he doesn't need a walk-in closet. He's just a kid. So let's turn it into a blah, 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 and all this type of stuff. So it was easy. And then, so I sort of lived in there, but I sort of always looked at it from the outside in, you know what I mean? It wasn't like my home.
Right. Would you do me a favor? Because, it would be interesting because we do actually have photos of this time period.
Uh-huh.
So if you do have any, if you wouldn't mind looking through them and just checking out to see if you have them, because because all what we're talking about and this whole experience with the New Hampshire house, it's rare to have, especially during that time when you just had your, camera that you actually had to develop film. But I think we do have some record of us at that time period and being dressed the same and all that. It would be fun. It would be fun to show those at some point, especially when we're talking about your story. So
yeah, I have them. They're not in computer. They're in my closet, but yeah.
Pop them out and we'll figure out how to get those transferred over.
Good.
Okay. So you're back now. When you come back to LA, I remember right away, I was excited because Justin was back and, we would cause whatever trouble we like to cause because we were both back in the cadet org at that point. However, I don't remember seeing you at all during that time period.
Right. So I went, so when we arrived back, we did the EPF for about a week or something like that. The EPF is the Estates Project for us. It's what people newly do, but we had done all the courses on it and we were already in for years. So it was sort of just following protocol, I guess. And then I was immediately put onto the ship project. There was no project. It was just, hey, we're buying a ship. Can you set it up? And that was it. And we hadn't even bought the ship yet. And so, Paul Grady was running the mission to find the ship and to buy it and get it, and bring it across to wherever we decided it would go. So I started at the very beginning on the port survey. So I was in and out of the Caribbean. And I think I told someone this or had it in one of the interviews 36 times. So I had 36 stamps in my passport to and from the Caribbean. It got it so bad. Miami airport knew me so well that, after getting through searching me and all this stuff for, after that, then they said, oh yeah, she's. Does this.
I watched Narcos on TV, so they probably thought you were a drug mule.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since you're going in and out of Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's crazy. That's actually pretty funny.
Anyway, so I was in and out a lot, and my first job. So my first thing I did was do a port survey. So I went to probably 15 different Caribbean islands at that time, meeting with the heads of customs, tourism, prime ministers, this type of thing. And I went as a travel author, like Fedor's travel book. And so I was a independent travel author, had a card and asked them a bunch of questions.
Just so that people weren't wondering why you kept going down there.
This is so when I was there, I could ask them questions.
Oh, okay.
That was the reason for it, was so that I could walk in and say, hey, head of tourism, I got a bunch of questions to ask you. I'm a freelance travel author, and which is really easy to be, because you just got to know about travel, which I did. Right. So I was able to ask them a lot of questions at that time, and I did that. So I met with the tourism, customs, like I said, prime ministers, the main newspapers at the time, because I wanted to, and the goal of doing that was to find out if their files still existed. So because the Apollo was there for so long, I wanted to see if I brought the Freewinds, which was called the La Boheme at that time, if I brought that into the Caribbean, would they A equals A and immediately bring up the files on the Apollo and say it's the same thing,
right?
Or not.
Yeah.
So that was what
some sort of past history that would be tainted for any new boat that you guys brought on there.
Exactly.
And I want to comment at this particular point in time. So now I am back with Justin, even though we don't live in the same room, actually. And the living conditions at this point for me were pretty atrocious. I actually did not live in any Sea Org apartment building. I actually lived on a property that was across the street and is in a 1-bedroom apartment that was circa 1920s again. And it even had an old ice box in it where you would take a cube of ice and put it in top and then cool the stuff underneath. That's how old it was. And at this point, it was Foster, Barbara, myself, and my little brother Nathan, who's approximately the same age as Jenna. And this would be my little half brother Nathan. So this is Barbara's son. And it was a maybe 600 square foot apartment. And Nathan would sleep in a little bed next to my parents' bed, and I would sleep in the kitchen. I actually slept in the kitchen for the longest time. So we had two separate beds in a tiny, tiny apartment. And it was not on the actual base because Foster was working in Bridge Publications at the time, and I don't know why it was set up this way, but we're not going to get into it. But it was Foster, I believe, was paid something closer to minimum wage because the Bridge Publications, which was the publishing house for Scientology, they were a for-profit organization, so they had to pay their staff slightly different, and so Foster actually had to pay rent. And it was a whole thing. I don't know how it worked out, but at that point in time, Justin, Nathan, and I, we would actually go. Nathan would go to what was called the CEO, which was the Cadet Estates Organization, our Children's Estates Organization, one or the other. I can't remember. It's not that relevant. He would go there, which was like a daycare facility located next to the Celebrity Center on Franklin or over in Hollywood.
So this is before the AT&T was set up.
This is before. Oh no, ATA was set up. Nathan was under the age. Yeah. No, this was also before Verizon was set up. So, Nathan would go there. Justin and I would go to the ATA, which was a single-story block building, disgusting building, just horrific with a asphalt front yard that we tried to play sports in and got cut up and scratched all the time. Yeah. I mean, it was more akin to a prison yard than it was to any sort of organization where children should be. You walked in the gate, and then it was like, I think it was like a 20-foot high fence with tarping on the outside. And then, I mean, it felt like a prison yard. And this was the facility where I think I've mentioned before, where I was spanked or where they tried to lock me in a room before. I was not a fan of this building at all. It had a tiny little backyard, but we would actually go there in the morning. And then a bus would take us for about a 1.5 year period, would actually take us to a public school. And I cannot for the life of me remember where that school was, but we used to get taken to a public school. And then later on, the church had either rented or purchased a former school in West Covina, and we would get taken the 45-minute drive every day out to West Covina to go to the school.
Okay.
And then come back.
Okay, and just so you know, it's so for time periods, Justin did not go to those schools.
He did go to West Covina. I know we're not
first, and I know, and second grade, I have the cards and everything. He went in Clearwater to 1 year, and then he went in 2 different places in New Hampshire. And then I have no other record.
Yeah. So when he was in LA with me, and I distinctly remember this, and I could be wrong, but I'm just going to tell you what my memory is. We used to ride the bus together. So we would have fun, playing pranks and doing different things. We would take the bus out to this West Covina facility. This is in LA. Take the bus out to the West Covina facility, go to school all day, and then we'd be shipped back to the Cadet Org at a certain point. And this is when I was also playing Little League Baseball. So I would actually leave after that, and Justin would stay and do some Cadet Org type activities. Whether it's central filing where they would file stuff or do little projects to help out the different Scientology organizations. But that's a whole nother story we'll get into sometime. Justin. But I just remember I was with Justin and we had a good time, and we had fun, and we would play dodgeball in the front. And again, I'm telling you my memories of what we did. To be clear, I've already stated that it was a horrible scenario. It was dirty. It was nasty. The only fond memories I had of it was playing the dodgeball in the front yard. And then, going to play baseball after. I was lucky that Barbara and/or Foster got me out of there. So after school, I didn't have to do any of the work or any of the labor they were doing at that point in time. So I can't say what Justin was doing, because I would go to school with Justin, and then later on, every once in a while, we'd hang out on the weekends. We might play some video games, because I was lucky enough that Foster got me a Nintendo 64 back in the day, or the original Nintendo NES system. I can't remember which one it was, but I had the little paddle. You wouldn't know this, but I had the little paddle remotes, and so I remember that fondly, because him and I used to fight about that all the time. But Justin would come over and visit me at my place off the property, and I would go see him in the Fountain Building after school sometimes. But really, he was more in the Cadet than I was at this point.
Right. And so what I remember about that time period is when we came back, we were told we were to stay in some berthing, and we went, nope, not going. We'll turn around right now and walk out unless we can renovate our own berthing, etc. So our Fountain apartment was completely renovated. We did it ourselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just so you know,
I didn't
so
know
it had the bunk beds for Jenna and Justin and all that. And it wasn't until the earthquake, and I forget what year that was. Everyone else will know.
But I remember it for sure. Yeah.
I remember looking out the window and seeing it. And I remember Jenna or Justin flying out of the bathroom and like, whoa, what's happening? So, and, so we renovated it and they stayed there. And I remember one time, and I always remember this story. Sorry, I have to tell it. This is a mother story, but Justin had collected all these sand dollars at the beach, the little fish thing. And then he brought them home and kept them in his drawer. And they, of course, died. And it smelled awful. And I could not fit. I was trying to figure out, where is the smell coming from? And I find these things. And he goes, oh, yeah, he was just little. And he said he kept them because he liked them so much.
Wow.
Anyway.
I do. I remember that earthquake. And I think they had something like an 8-inch crack just open up on the whole back of that building, which was pretty scary.
Right. And it was at that point we moved to Edgemont. And that was at that point we moved in with the Rinders.
Okay. Yeah. And now Justin and Taryn, though, were in the nursery together in the Fountain, or not nursery, but they I guess they hung out in the Fountain from time to time.
Okay.
And we've got old stories about, I think I learned to ride a bike in the Fountain Building, bouncing off the walls with Justin. But another story for definitely for another time.
Right. I remember that nursery there now.
Yeah. That was also nasty. It was in the basement, and it constantly flooded with the sewer water, so it was pretty nasty. Okay, so we're caught up to that point, and then what I would love to do is just get right up to the ranch section if we can.
Well, there was a little section before that. So
go ahead.
I was traveling a lot at that point, and we were in the Edgemont. And so that was when I brought Pat. And Pat was someone I had gotten from the ship or organization. She was a nurse and all that. And she took care of Jenna and Justin, kind of, but not really. Justin was sort of an age where he didn't want to be taken care of at all. He just wanted to roam, and he did.
Yeah,
and
he was very independent. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and we were traveling back and forth a lot between Int and, which was in Hemet at this time, and Int base, which was in Hemet. And then, the Edgemont, which was in LA. And that was when, we got Pat and all that, and to, care for things or whatever. Anyway,
just to tell my part of that story leading up to that. So at some point, and I think, I can't remember if Justin had left already up to the ranch, but at some point I had made the decision, hey, I'm going to make Foster proud. And I signed my Sierra contract.
Okay.
And I remember he took me to McDonald's for that. So I was super stoked. So, I mean, a fair trade, 1 billion years, Big Mac.
Yeah.
I mean, right. I got the better end of that deal for sure. And so I start doing the EPF, right? And so mind you, the year before I'd been playing Little League Baseball still. So I then decide in the let's call it the off season, like I'm a professional baseball player. It happened to be the off season of baseball. I sign the contract and I jump onto the EPF. I'm doing the EPF and I'm having a hard time with it. And I don't remember seeing you any of this time. Actually, I didn't see you again, I believe, until I went to the ranch. When you got me pulled up to the ranch, and we'll get up to that. But I just have no memory of you during this time period. But what I do remember, and this is one of the
I did see you, but you just don't remember it. But just
that's right. Yeah, I don't, because I remember. Yeah, I'll remember the significant parts, or when something was like I was super happy or excited. So maybe I was seeing you frequently enough that it didn't register as much for me at the time. But so I'm doing this EPF, having a hard time with the study part of it. And what we used to do is there was an area where everyone would meet. I believe it was called the VRU unit. I'm going to get that. It's another Scientology acronym for a location next to Big Blue. And that's where we'd meet after meals and stuff like that. Well, one day I was running. I came out of what would be Lebanon Hall, another building located in Big Blue. And I ran up. There was a giant trash compactor. And I ran up to go on top of that. Now, you could go all down the stairs and all the way around to get to the same location, but I was going to take a shortcut. I was going to, I was somewhat athletic, so I was going to run on top of this trash compactor. And then right at the edge, there's about a 6-foot jump to land onto the next section of the compactor. And then from there, it was 4 feet to get down to the concrete. So it was a shortcut. I believe we were all racing to get there. And I get to the edge of this trash compactor, and I'm just about to jump down. Yeah. And I don't even know if you knew about this. I'd be interested to find out if you knew this happened. I slip. And the second I slip, I pass out. I don't know how that happens, but I pass out. And all I remember is falling head first and then passing out. And I wake up in the security office. I'm on my back. I can see the bright light above, just to be clear, bright light. No, I'm not going to heaven. the light of the office. I can see it above me, and I can see someone asking me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm in pain, like excruciating pain. I look over to my right wrist, and it had been dislocated. So there's a large bump in my wrist, and my left wrist is also hurting. And I'm beginning to wake up, and I'm like, well, I'm dazed. I'm like, what happened? Why am I here? And then the person explains to me, hey, you fell. Are you okay? You basically fell off this thing, there's this trash compactor. And essentially I had broken both wrists. Now, later on, I realized how lucky I was because I fell head first. If I had landed on my head or my neck, I could have died. And as we know, child safety is not a priority of the Church of Scientology at all. In fact, I don't even think they take that into consideration for anything. And so I get taken to the children's hospital, which is right across the street, but they actually had to get an ambulance for me. I believe probably because I went unconscious. So I obviously did hit my head, but my arms somehow blocked a majority of that. That's how I got my broken. Both wrists one was fractured, one was dislocated. So I go over to the children's hospital. I remember them resetting my wrist. Ooh, that was pain like I never want to ever have again. Anyways, so I'm incapacitated for like a month or so. I've got 2 elbow high casts on both my arms. I can't do anything. So I'm just resting and taking it easy for a little bit. And then at some point I decide, okay, well, let me go finish the EPF with the casts on. And well, now I don't have to do any sort of physical labor because I can't, so I can just study full time. So because I can study full time, I get through all my courses. I wrap that up. I remember distinctly getting a call from the manager that coached my Little League team the year before saying, hey, Sterling, can you come play this season? And I was like, oh, I can't play. I have an injury. I broke my wrist. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, that's convenient, so I don't have to tell them that I joined the Sea Org because I literally can't play. it's so weird thinking about having that conversation at this point in my life, because I was still just a kid. But anyway, so I finished my EPF, and I ended up going to CMOPAC, and I'm gonna end that there, because I think the next point we're gonna end up talking about is Justin going to the ranch, how I got to the ranch. And I really never talked to you in detail about that. So I can't wait to have that conversation next time about, I don't remember if you knew I was in trouble somehow or if I contacted you. I can't remember how that went down and how you got me to the ranch. But I do want to talk about the story about how upset Barbara was that I decided to go to the ranch, and that she saw that as me going to see you and felt betrayed as a mother. And I don't think I've ever told you that part of the story. So next time we talk, we're gonna pick up from there. Sorry to leave everyone with a cliffhanger. I want to give you a chance to say anything if you'd like, and then I'm going to ask everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Please write question on them. We'll try to answer a few questions if we can. But Mom, do you have anything else you would like to say?
Well, I definitely knew about the breaking both wrists and
you did.
that whole thing. But and I knew everything about it. So so I remember that. Yeah, and it was like not one, both. And it was like
both.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Justin had earlier broken a leg.
Right.
And so I knew about resetting, and it was painful for him.
Oh my God. Yeah. I never want to go through that again. That was definitely not, oof. That was brutal. That was brutal.
Yeah. Anyway,
okay.
That was all I had.
All right. Well, guys, if you put your questions in right now, I'm going to go look for those. While I'm looking for those, give me about a minute and 10 seconds here, and we'll be back. Here we go. All right, we're back.
Narcissistic, but okay.
I figured I had to kill the dead air.
I know. It was very funny.
And that was obviously just photos of me traveling different parts of the world for fun. We don't have a whole lot of questions, just a few. But I did want to quickly address this thing, and I do love that people talk about this a little bit in the chat, because I obviously refer to you as Mom, but also when I talk about you in other interviews, I say Biddy. And to be clear, the whole reason for that is because anyone that knows me or my family, if I say Mom, I always have to specify who I'm talking about when I say that. Now, when I say my father, that's not the case, because Ronnie was never my father. So I have to specify when I say Mom who I'm talking about. So sometimes it's easier to say Barbara or Biddy. Barbara is my stepmom, who raised me for most of my life. Biddy's my biological mom, who obviously now in my later years, I spend more time with. So that being said, let's pop onto a couple questions here.
Okay.
And Miranda Brinker, how do they feel about Foster still being inside? Mom, I'm gonna let you go ahead and see what you have to say about that.
Okay. Well, I feel, it's, I wish he would get out. I think he needs to know that there's people out here that would help him or take care of him or whatever, because he's 10 years older than me, and look at me, I'm old. So, I think that, but I don't think he'll ever let go of his thoughts or agreements or a pledge he made. So to him, that's more important than his immediate surroundings.
Right. And I agree with you. He would have large support if he came out. He also, I don't think he's dedicated to Dave Miscavige, I
Right.
think he's dedicated to L. Ron Howard more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm going to continue to refer to him as L. Ron Howard. Not to be confused with the guy that directed Backdraft. So yeah, I agree with that. And I do think he's dedicated to the mission. He believes that, I think he's one of the people that may believe that L. Ron Howard's coming back at some point.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but I do believe that's what he thinks. Another question from Miranda Brinker. Miranda Brinker, question for both. What was it like reconnecting and building a relationship after all the years apart? Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. That's a great question. I think I stepped on, I did it wrong, is what my thought is. I think I tried to quickly repair it. Hey, everyone, please, I'm your mom, be the same, you should love me, and, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I didn't realize till later I had to actually recreate this. And I think I did better on it on my own. You know what I mean? So when I was on my own, on myself, and no other influences or anything like that, I was able to do it. And it was awesome. I think it's great getting to know, Justin, Sterling, Jenna, all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I think I mentioned part of this story last time I spoke, but I lost a mom when I left. I lost Barbara. I lost Foster. And I've always had a connection with you, Mom. And it's something we'll talk about in our next story, because we're going to get into the ranch and the time period where we were both at Golden Era Productions, or the Int Base. And that's when it gets into really deep, dark stuff. Because right now we're building the narrative, so you understand who Biddy is, who I am, and what our relationship is. But I was so happy to see you when we left, when you invited me out to Virginia. You were so welcoming to me. You were like, you kind of want to show me these different things in life. And even though we don't always agree, and we do argue sometimes, and we do even fight, we're both stubborn in our personalities. Justin's more stubborn than both of us put together, but we're both stubborn. And I felt, look, I always knew there was a love there. And I didn't ever question that. And when you know that's there, or you feel that, you don't really question it. That doesn't mean we don't disagree on particular items, like how many times you should wash your jeans after wearing them. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. So that's a great question, Miranda Brinker. Thank you so much. Here's another one. Dastardly Saboteur. That's such a good name. Question. Is there some big Scientology community or something in West Covina? Kind of interesting that the DMV photo of Shelley was from Covina, DMV. Oh, do you know about that, Mom?
No, but I do know in Southern California, Inland Empire, Covina, West Covina it's where Hemet is close to. It's in Riverside County, and it's there's the org that was there, and I don't know if it's still there or not, or whatever. So there was a lot of a hubbub there in Southern California for that area, but I don't know of any big Scientology community.
Yeah. To answer your question, no, actually, there's no big community there. It just happened to be where they found a school to rent, or at the time, and I think anything in LA would have been too expensive. So it was an abandoned school out there, and that's where we went. I think that's really the long and short of it. Okay, here we go. Choctaw Nation Princess, one of my favorite people on this. She always makes the best comments and questions. Question, Biddy, when do we get to see you again? I adore you. Oh, and appreciate you sharing. It is difficult. That's very nice. I'll answer the beginning of that just because I believe you're going to be on Janice and Mark's channel tomorrow for Peeling the Onion. I don't know what time it is, but go ahead, check out their YouTube channel. She'll be on there tomorrow. I'm hoping, if it's okay with my mom, we're probably going to do another series on Saturday morning, at least until we get to the end of this particular line of stories and stuff like that. And I do believe that you're going to possibly be on some other channels as well, talking about your experiences, and Shelley Miscavige, et cetera, et cetera. So Choctaw Nation Princess, I hope that answers your question. Mom, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I agree. I appreciate that. It is difficult, but I appreciate you listening and all that type of stuff. I thought I'm now at an age 66, almost 66 and a half, that it's time that I communicated my story and my side of it so people understood or knew, and not that it really matters, but it does to me. And I want my grandchildren to know. I have 2 grandchildren, beautiful, Archie and Winnie, both children of Jenna's, who I love and adore immensely. And I want to make sure they have the whole story and they know everything, So that's it.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Hey, Mom, thank you so much for coming on with me again today. I appreciate it. Again, it's fascinating. It's interesting to talk about this. And it's also the amount of memories that come back is shocking.
Yeah.
That being said, I hope to see you next Saturday. And
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the outro, and then we'll talk really briefly after.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, I'll stay here.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?